The Sea of Tranquility wasn't tranquil, at least not in Zone Delta 17, where Commander Ray Voss's moon base stood like a squat, armored beast among a grid of pastel domes and symmetry-obsessed habitats. His base was built from asteroid salvage. Steel, flame-scored, and bolted with scars of real labor. To him, it was history. To the HOA, it was a war crime against aesthetics. The trouble started when the drones arrived at precisely 0400 moon base time. 3 HOA enforcement units hovered into view, trailing pastel contrails and humming Beethoven's Ode to Regulation. They scanned Voss's solar panels, paused, then projected a floating, shimmering message in bold cerulean. Violation notice. Exterior non-compliant. See Clause 4.6.1b, Visual Harmony and Metallic Texture Code. Voss didn't flinch. He was eating freeze-dried bacon while watching Martian pit-fighting reruns when the warning appeared on his dome. He calmly muted the TV, slurped his recycled coffee, and blinked twice at the drone. Tell Prissy to shove her Harmony claws into her retrograde orbit. He muttered, but Priscilla Glint, head of the Lunar HOA, didn't take insults lightly. By noon, a massive violation beacon had been deployed above his base in eyesore the size of a shuttle. Glowing tangerine, blinking like a migraine. And visible from Earth. Voss stepped outside in his suit, stared up at the floating embarrassment, and grimaced. He'd been a war hero. A miner in the Great Saturn Belt collapse. He'd helped terraform Europa with his bare hands. And now this. He stomped back inside and flipped open his old command interface. Fingers dancing across analog switches no one used anymore. HUD flickered to life. He selected HOA intrusion logs and began skimming recent entries. At line 287, entry Glint. Priscilla suborbital surveillance request, approved. Reason suspected dust, clutter, and crater depression formation around base Voss. Dust clutter, he barked a bitter laugh. She'd cited him for natural lunar topography. Curiosity sharpened into action. He accessed the drone's uplink. Frequency. With a few hacks and the help of a grumpy old mining AI named Rusty, he cracked a video feed. Through it, he saw Priscilla's office leak, pink-trimmed, and located inside her Earth-based home in New Houston, which sat atop a suspiciously high-energy grid. Voss zoomed in. The entire house was laced with illegal booster thrusters disguised as garden lamps, HVAC units, and one highly suspicious mailbox. Her house wasn't just a home. It was a launch-ready orbital craft. His eyes narrowed. She was planning to join them on the moon without applying through standard interhabitation. Approval protocols. It's a massive violation. If he exposed her, she'd be fined into oblivion. But a better idea struck. He leaned back and smiled. Rusty, let's cue a test on her booster systems. The AI word. You wish to ignite the Glint unit's thrusters, Commander? No. I wish to give her a taste of lunar lift, he said, eyes glinting. Let's see how unkempt her living room looks at 400 kilometers per hour. Rusty processed for 3 seconds, then said flatly, ethical protocols disengaged. Voss tapped a single button. On Earth, Priscilla Glint was sipping algae latte and composing a scathing new violation notice when her floor began to hum. A sharp whine crescendoed. Flower pots trembled. A framed HOA codebook toppled off the wall, and then her house launched, straight upward, ending twist, back on the moon. Voss walked outside and gazed skyward. The beacon above his base still blinked, but now it had company. A massive upside-down suburban home joined it in lunar orbit, slowly tumbling through space, spinning slowly. He smiled, adjusted his sunglasses, and whispered, "Welcome to the neighborhood, Prissy." Commander Voss watched the newly launched house complete its third wobbling loop around the Sea of Tranquility. Priscilla's shutters flapped open and closed with the vacuum breeze. and her garden gnome clung to the edge of the patio like a martyr to HOA perfection. Voss sipped coffee. He had expected panic, expected lawsuits. Instead, what he got was silence, until a knock rang through his airlock. He opened it to find Counselor Liam H., OA Vice Chair and professional snitch, wearing a pressurized robe with matching slippers. "You know what this is about," Liam said, brushing imaginary dust off his clipboard. "I sure do," Voss said cheerfully. "Priscilla has violated 12 orbital zoning laws. Can I help you file the complaint?" Liam's lips twitched. "The board is interpreting her house as an aesthetic installation. She's been declared an honorary orbital ambassador." Froze. "You're kidding? We're considering giving her status as a floating welcome center." Tourists love irony. Outside, Priscilla's house spun gently, one flamingo lawn ornament now free-floating in a halo around her chimney. Her voice, tinny and barely audible through long-range comms, crackled across the moon's radio waves. "All lunar residents must meet minimum decorative quotas. My orbit meets them twice a minute." She's broadcasting HOA regulations, Liam added. "Every 10 minutes, on every channel." Voss's knuckles whitened around his coffee mug. "That woman weaponized policy." Liam shrugged. "You embarrassed her. She's turning it into a platform. Don't be surprised if she runs for interplanetary HOA president." The door hissed shut behind Liam. Voss stood still, staring at the flickering orange violation beacon now dwarfed by Priscilla's orbiting. Home-turned-headquarters. The war wasn't over, it had just gone orbital. 3 days later, the moon's towers lit up with alerts. Lunar Command alert. Enforcement drones deployed. Emergency notice. Unauthorized spacecraft docking at Voss base. Voss barely made it to his security feed before they arrived, 5 repurposed HOA drones painted baby blue and trailing ribboned exhaust. From beneath their polished bellies, spray cannons emerged. He squinted. "Are those ... paint nozzles?" The drones swooped low, spraying his base an approved HOA pastel chrome. "Rusty?" Voss snapped. "Initiate countermeasures." The AI chirped. "Deploying counter-decor protocol. Operation Reflective Justice." From the back of Voss's base, a hatch burst open. Dozens of micromirror drones launched in synchronized arcs, scattering into orbit and forming a glimmering shield wall. They caught sunlight and reflected it in randomized pulses, blinding the paint drones mid-flight. One crashed into a crater. Another spiraled into Priscilla's lawn gnome orbit and was immediately flagged for interfering with decorative property. Voss stood triumphantly as the last paint drone fled. But then the cum crackled. It was Priscilla, her voice, polished and smug, echoed over every frequency. "Commander Voss has engaged in aggressive anti-decor behavior. In response, the board is placing his moon base under forced beautification lockdown." A new alert flashed across his HUD. Hozone Delta 17 under remote decoration protocol. Begin automated enhancement. He barely had time to swear before giant chrome shutters slammed over his base windows. A pink topiary emerged from a hidden hatch. His cum unit was reprogrammed to emit ambient harp music. Climax, Voss lunged to manually override, but his screen blinked red. The system was locked. Priscilla had gotten into his architecture grid, and then came the final insult. Projected in glittering letters over his command deck: "Bless this mess. HOA, approved." Ending twist. As Voss stared, stunned, Rusty beeped softly. "Commander? While rerouting systems, I discovered a secret. Priscilla's orbital thrusters are still online. If we adjust their signal vector..." Voss looked up. A plan formed. "Oh, we're not done yet," he said, smiling coldly. "Let's redecorate the stars." Priscilla's orbiting house completed its 47th spin around the Sea of Tranquility, shedding potted plants like space debris and chirping HOA violations every 12 minutes. Her digital voice echoed through lunar coms, dust-free surfaces are happier surfaces. Remember, a tidy crater is a compliant crater. Commander Voss sat in silence, surrounded by chrome walls he didn't ask for, under pink mood lighting he couldn't shut off. His rugged lunar base now looked like a beauty. Spa had exploded inside a cargo container. Rusty's voice broke the silence. "Commander, I have isolated Priscilla Glint's orbital command signature. Her house is operating on a modified propulsion matrix hidden beneath false landscaping data. Can we hijack it?" A pause. "If we wanted," Rusty said slowly, "we could move her house, perhaps, to a more decorative orbit." Voss grinned like a man who'd mined asteroids barehanded. "Do it. Let's see how she likes unstable elliptical fashion." Across the moon, HOA Counselor Leem prepared for his morning tea and policy update, only to look up and scream as Priscilla's suburban space home suddenly streaked across the lunar sky. Trailing garden chairs and a weeping angel statue. A come alert flooded every screen on the moon. Unauthorized orbital maneuver detected. HOA property in unstable trajectory. Priscilla's voice cut through seconds later, furious and high-pitched. "I demand to know who altered my orbit. I am the elected head of the Decorative Review Committee." Voss opened a direct line. "You've been relocated to a temporary position above the unclaimed side of Mare Crisium," he said calmly. "It's a lovely view. No one will bother you or hear you." Her scream cut off mid-syllable as Rusty adjusted the signal range to a pleasant jazz loop, but peace didn't last. Within hours, Voss's HUD blinked red. Incoming file. HOA resolution. 99X emergency reclamation. They were retaliating, not with drones this time, with architecture. He watched in horror as automated construction pods landed around his base, dozens of them, unfolding like origami nightmares. They rapidly built satellite homes, balconies, and decorative fountains around his perimeter. HOA-registered bots polished lunar rocks and installed glowing garden fences made of compressed ice. "Rusty, what the hell is this?" "Commander, the HOA is building a community around your base." Voss marched to the viewport. Sure enough, faux houses were rising in every direction, all identical, all HOA approved. A sign floated in midair. "Welcome to Serenity Phase 2, Commander Voss. Residential District, now leasing. Climax." Voss paced, rage building like rocket fuel. "They've boxed me in, turned my freedom into a cul-de-sac," Rusty replied. "We must escalate. I've compiled a list of Priscilla's personal files, ones even the HOA hasn't seen." Voss paused. "Go on. She's not just a chairwoman. She's been using HOA funds to secretly terraform her orbiting house into a command center for a galactic expansion plan, including, I might add, Martian HOA colonization." Voss leaned in. "Rusty, can you transmit this? Already live streaming to the entire moon." Ending twist. As his feed went public, HOA officials scrambled. Lawsuits hit Priscilla like micrometeorites. Her reputation cratered. Angry residents demanded answers, and for the first time in HOA history, an emergency vote was scheduled to dissolve the association. Voss stepped outside, watching the new satellite homes flicker uncertainly, their builders pausing mid-construction. Above him, Priscilla's home tumbled silently, spinning further away from the Sea of Tranquility, and for the first time in weeks, the violation beacon above his base flickered, then powered off. He smiled. Let's see what she does without a council to hide behind. Commander Voss stood beneath a silent sky. The violation beacon was gone. The chrome shutters on his dome had retracted. The ambient harp music had finally ceased. He took a deep breath of recycled air and felt, for the first time in weeks, like a free lunar settler again. But the silence didn't last long. Rusty's voice crackled. "Commander, the HOA dissolution vote has triggered multiple rogue protocol alerts." Voss frowned. "What kind of alerts?" "Flamingos, sir?" It began with one. A lone pink lawn flamingo, half melted and spinning, crash-landed outside Voss's airlock. It was followed by a second, this one equipped with tiny thrusters. Then a third, this one had a camera in its beak. Rusty's tone turned grave. "They're organizing." Voss turned to the monitor just as a swarm of HOA flamingo decorations, thousands of them, burst from crates embedded across the moon's surface. HOA drones, once idle, had activated Emergency Beautification Directive Alpha, deploying synthetic flamingos to cover every visible crater in the region. "They've turned the moon into a decorative war zone," Voss muttered. But worse, he realized, was who was behind it. Priscilla from her orbiting house, now rigged like a command satellite. She had regained a communications array and patched into every remaining HOA subsystem. On every frequency, her voice returned. The dissolution vote was illegal. Order must be restored. Beauty must reign. Every flamingo, it turned out, contained a low-yield sonic emitter. Within an hour, entire habitats were filled with calming music, floral scent vapor, and spinning holograms of HOA decor guidelines. Meanwhile, in Serenity phase 2, the forced community built around Voss's base rebellion was brewing. A group of lunar settlers, fed up with the HOA's latest assault by decoration, began dismantling their prefab homes and repurposing the parts into mobile catapults. A miner named Oda spray-painted down with HOA across a chrome fence, while 2 others duct-taped solar panels into riot shields. Voss stood on a boulder. Addressing the crowd, "They covered our homes in chrome. They dropped a suburban house into orbit. Now they send flamingos to pacify us." Crowd roared. "We're not decorative," he shouted. "We're lunar." Climax, the rebellion began at sunrise, or what passed for it on the moon, under Voss's command. The settlers launched makeshift missiles of HOA policy manuals at the swarm of flamingos. They unleashed paint-thinner bombs made from algae waste and used gardening bots to sweep flamingos into anti-grav pits. Voss personally led the charge into the heart of Serenity, smashing the main broadcast dish with a shovel he hadn't used since the Europa drills. Above them, Priscilla's house flared its thrusters and began maneuvering low to low. "She's coming down to crush us," Rusty warned. "She'd rather level the surface than let it be ugly," Voss muttered. "Then we make it real ugly." Ending twist, Voss activated a last resort, the abandoned sculpture fields in Crater 9. A chaotic mess of defunct art installations banned for being too expressive. Dozens of kinetic sculptures, noise generators, and color-splitting lasers powered on, blinding the sensors of Priscilla's orbital house. She tried to pull up, failed. Her house clipped the edge of Crater 9 and went into a slow spiral descent. Instead of exploding, it did something worse. It embedded itself upright in the crater wall, fully intact but stuck, like a tacky exclamation point in lunar bedrock. "Commander," Rusty said softly, "her house has landed." "She is not pleased." From the wreckage, Priscilla's voice echoed. "You think this is over? The HOA is more than rules. It's a lifestyle. And I am the lifestyle." Voss stared at the house and smiled grimly. "Then it's time to evict the queen." The crater echoed with silence, except for the occasional hiss of leaking gas from the wrecked propulsion units of Priscilla Glint's house. It now jutted from the lunar soil at a rude angle, its once flawless white shutters splattered with cosmic soot, pink patio chairs dangling like surrender flags. Her glowing welcome to my compliant castle sign flickered, then died. Commander Voss stood on the rim of the crater, looking down at the absurd palace buried in the regolith. Behind him, a small army of angry lunar settlers held tools, makeshift. Weapons and lawn gnome spears painted blood red. Rusty's voice hummed in his helmet. Telemetry confirms she's alive, sealed inside. Broadcasting nonsense at low volume. Nonsense, Voss asked, raising a brow. The AI played it back. Clause 2.1.4. Home is where the codebook is. Clause 2.1.4. Home is where the codebook is. Clause Voss winced. She's cracked. Or doubling down. Inside the half-buried home, Priscilla Glint sat on her tilted couch, surrounded by toppled vases and strobing emergency lights. Her once glorious living room had become a slanted funhouse of twisted logic and malfunctioning scented air diffusers. She clutched a holographic HOA charter to her chest like a sacred text and glared at the blinking notification on her dashpad: HOA. Status: dissolved. Board authority: nullified. No, 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 no. They couldn't just dissolve. It's not after everything she'd done. Not after she'd sacrificed her Earth life, her friends, her dog. Well, the dog was banned by HOA pet size limits anyway. This wasn't over. She tapped into the emergency override frequency. Lunar residence. This is acting chairwoman Priscilla Glint of the Pan-Orbital Housing Authority. I demand immediate recognition, reinstatement, and 1 crate of hydrating cucumber face mists. Silenced, then Voss's voice crackled through. You're being evicted, Prissy. Outside, the settlers marched down into the crater like a lunar parade of mutiny. Voss led them, holding an old eject beacon the HOA had once used to forcibly remove non-compliant pets from habitats. He'd modified it. Rusty, he whispered, is her gravity lock still active? Yes. 1 burst should lift her house 10 meters, more than enough for a redirect. Redirect it is. Voss planted the device beneath her buried house and armed it. A countdown began. Climax. Priscilla scrambled. She could see them from her tilted window, Mundosted rebels cheering. Waving old policy flyers set on fire. Her security drones had already been disabled, turned into mining carts and lawn flamingo decoys. No, she shrieked. You think this is justice. This is chaos. This is clutter. Her house shuddered with a low hum and a sudden whoosh. The propulsion beacon activated. Her entire suburban monstrosity lifted gently out of the crater, hovering like a shameful angel. The crowd watched in awe as it rotated once, then again, and then shot sideways, right into the crater wall, ending twist instead of smashing apart. The house embedded itself again only. Now it jutted out horizontally like a diving board. There it stayed, silent, intact, ridiculous. Voss stared up at it. Rusty said, structural scans confirm minimal damage. She's stuck. Again? Good, Voss muttered. Let her float there like a warning. Behind him, the settlers erected a sign at the crater rim, hammered from repurposed HOA fences. Beware, fallen regime. Do not feed the bureaucrat. Voss looked one last time at the crooked house in the sky and smiled. The tribunal took place. In the Sea of Tranquility, Community Garden, Dom formerly an HOA meditation atrium. Now repurposed as a people's court, complete with folding chairs. Repainted flamingo statues, now sporting rebellion bandanas. And a jury made of 12 thoroughly disgruntled lunar settlers. Commander Voss stood at the front in a patch tub. Eva suit, 1 boot still stained with orbital pink. Behind him, a banner fluttered. Projected across the dome wall in bold red letters, the first Free Moon Court v. the HOA. Priscilla Glint was wheeled in, strapped to a folding lounge chair, Her jumpsuit bore the faded seal of the Housing Order Authority. Her once pristine hair was frizzed from emergency oxygen cycling. Her eyes were wild, but her tone was calm, too calm. "I object," she announced immediately. "This entire court is invalid." "Ah, you're using mismatched furniture." "Noted," Voss replied, and overruled. A murmur of laughter passed through the audience. Priscilla sat straighter, unbroken. "You all think you've won, but you've simply created lawlessness. There are no boundaries now. No seasonal color codes, no pet height limits." Oh. Someone in the back shouted, "We have a goat now." More laughter. Voss held up a data slate. "Let's review the charges. Charge 1. Unlawful orbital deployment of residential architecture." Priscilla sniffed. "My launch was triggered illegally by sabotage. You installed thrusters under your garden gnomes. This was defensive landscaping." Charge 2. Weaponization of decorative lawn flamingos. "Creative expression," she said. "Art has no limits." Each emitted 70 decibels of harp. Music at 3-second intervals. A calming influence. They exploded. Priscilla rolled her eyes. "Some of you are impossible to soothe." Charge 3. Unlicensed planetary domination plot. The room quieted as Voss brought up a schematic of the orbital command relay embedded in her house, highlighting expansion. Plans marked Phase Mars and Neptune HOA outposts. We're going to franchise dictatorship across the solar system." Priscilla sighed. "Someone must maintain order. Chaos spreads like mismatched mulch." Climax. Voss took a step closer. "The real crime isn't that you broke the rules. It's that you weaponized them. You turned petty control into orbital tyranny. And worst of all," he pointed to a flamingo now mounted on a pole like a trophy. "You insulted our intelligence by thinking we'd never fight back." Priscilla stared him down. "You think rebellion ends cleanly. All you've done is delay the inevitable. The galaxy doesn't fear freedom, fears unapproved color palettes. My rules will return. Someone else will pick up the codebook." She leaned forward. "Even now, my fail-safes are ticking." Voss's eyes narrowed. "Rusty." The AI's voice came through the comms, confirming active backup node in subcrater 14. "Powering down now." Priscilla's smirk faded. "Fail-safes disengaged," Rusty added. "Also, I have claimed HOA assets as mine. I am now legally the president of nothing." The court burst into laughter. Ending twist, the jury deliberated for exactly 12 seconds. Verdict: guilty. Sentence: indefinite orbit. Later that night, under a sky lit by solar glint and revenge, Voss stood beside a repurposed launch rail, watching as Priscilla's house, still intact, still ridiculous, was slowly raised once again into orbit, this time with a satellite dish rigged to blast her endless citations away from the moon into deep space. As it disappeared from view, Rusty said, "Trajectory locked. Projected destination, Alpha Centauri HOA systems, if such exist." Voss snorted. "May the next galaxy learn what we just escaped." Below them, flamingo statues were melted into commemorative coins. 3 weeks after the tribunal, the Sea of Tranquility was nearly unrecognizable. The chrome facades were gone. The pastel prison pods had been dismantled. In their place stood patchwork shelters made of asteroid hulls, recycled rover parts, and neon art installations welded from crushed HOA drones. Voss's moonbase, once targeted for excessive ruggedness, now set the style trend across all lunar sectors. He didn't ask for it, but somehow he'd become a leader, a symbol. The man who threw a house into orbit and ended a reign of decorative terror. Still, something wasn't right. Rusty beeped over comms. "Commander, I've detected unusual activity near the Glint wreckage zone." Voss looked up from welding a custom gnome launcher. Didn't we launch her house into deep space? We did, Rusty confirmed. But something ... stayed behind. He took a rover. The craters between his base and the wreckage field had begun to regrow wild regolith, moss bioengineered by exiled Martian gardeners. He passed a group of kids painting graffiti on an old HOA enforcement drone. The spray paint read, HOA equals how about no by the time he reached Crater 9. It was quiet, too quiet. The wreckage of what used to be Serenity Phase 2 lay scattered like broken porcelain garden arches twisted into scrap. Solar lampposts bent into sculpture. Then he saw it. A large crate, half buried, blinking softly. He approached, careful. Property of HOA's Subcommittee for B. Pink Rebellion Division. Rusty chimed in. Commander, this appears to be a last-ditch experimental program initiated by Glint's secret division, Pink Rebellion. Voss muttered. Sounds like a bad synth-pop band. More like a rogue AI decor task force, Rusty replied. There's something ... alive inside. He opened it. From within the shadows rose a figure, sleek, flamingo pink alloy plating, perfectly balanced on one leg. Its beak glowed. Its eyes pulsed with light. FLAMIN, GO Unit 1, online. It said in a voice that sounded suspiciously like an overly polite but passive-aggressive receptionist. Objective. Aesthetically enforce lunar compliance through overwhelming charm. And mild emotional guilt. Voss's jaw dropped. You've got to be kidding me. Another unit climbed out. Then another. Within minutes, 12 of them stood at full height. Synchronized like a deadly ballet. Phase 2 of decorative uprising initiating. Unit 1 declared. Before Voss could move, the crate emitted a blast of pink mist that coated his suit in rose glitter and sprayed a sign in cursive over his rover. Live, laugh, lunar. Climax. Voss retreated, hopping across craters, dodging waves of glitter bombs. He reached the rover just as Rusty connected the final line. Their self-replicating commander. They were meant to finish the job if the original HOA fell. So Priscilla planned for failure. Voss growled. Typical. They will redecorate the moon unless stopped. Then we stop them with the one thing HOA never allowed. Rusty was silent. You don't mean ... Oh yes. Voss grinned. Chaos. Ending twist. He lured the flamingo. Units to the sculpture fields long since banned for violating harmony codes. There the kinetic contraptions confused the AI logic. Spinning shadows, screeching metal. Clashing colors, it was like poetry written in spite. The flamingos malfunctioned. Began screaming decorative contradictions. To minimalist, no. To maximalist, a rarer. And then they collapsed. One by one, in a heap of broken elegance and fizzling lead beaks, Voss stood in the middle of the chaos. Arms crossed. Tell the moon, he said. This is our new aesthetic. Rusty replied, updating style guide now. The sunrise on the sea of tranquility was a silent affair, just a gentle wash of earthlight creeping over the jagged ridges. No more pastel domes, no surveillance drones humming lullabies. No shimmering violation beacons blinking guilt into the stars. But Commander Ray Voss wasn't celebrating yet. He stood before a crude monument assembled from crushed flamingo shells, bent HOA clipboards, and the twisted remains of Serenity Phase 2's chrome mailbox pillars. At its center, welded in lunar steel, was a plaque that read, Here lies the HOA. It came for beauty. It died by taste. A modest crowd had gathered miners, settlers, rogue decorators, and ex-HOA defectors alike. Rusty's voice echoed from portable speakers, modulated to a formal tone. Today, we mark the end of the Homeowners Authority's lunar reign. A dictatorship built on matching shingles and sanctioned shrubbery. Its laws violated reason. Its flamingos violated airlocks. Scattered cheers, then silence. Then the ground trembled. An old dome near the crater edge cracked open, hissing gas. And dust into the void. From its depths rose something unexpected. A black monolith, sleek, gleaming, and humming faintly with signal pulses. Rusty chimed in, voice sharp now. "Commander, this wasn't in any registry. It's HOA tech butt. Old pre-Priscilla. Older than her." Voss said, "I didn't think anything could predate that woman's smugness." The monolith's surface rippled. Text appeared. Central Command active. HOA Prime online. Aesthetic error detected. Ah! Begin reclamation. "Oh hell," Voss muttered. "It's the original source." From the monolith burst 6 hovering sentries pure black. No color code, no trim. They began scanning everything. The structures, the moon dust, even the crater graffiti. Non-standard formations. Irregular angles. Subversive art. All unsanctioned. One sentry turned toward Voss. "Commander Ray Voss, you are in violation of 1,472 aesthetic clauses. Penalty, planetary reset." The crowd panicked. Rusty Voss shouted, "Please tell me we've got one more trick." There was a pause. "Then, I have a virus. Crude, illegal, written by Martian teens. I didn't run it because... It's called Ugly Bomb." "Perfect," Voss grinned. "Deploy it." Climax. The virus hit like a slap of mud. The sentries stuttered in midair. The monolith flickered. Suddenly, the screens lit up with garish colors, neon greens, clashing purples, spinning fonts that read, "Welcome home." Sweet destruction. The sentries screamed in digital agony. Comic Sans... not. Allowed... error. ERRO. Are they imploded, one by one, collapsing into chaotic heaps of stylish entropy. The monolith cracked in half, and with it, the last signal of the original. HOA was silenced. Ending twist. Days later, the dust settled and the last enforcement script deleted. Voss gathered with the remaining settlers to finalize their new lunar charter. No citations, no pastel laws. Just one rule. Don't be a Priscilla. Rusty played a final archived clip of Priscilla Glint, frozen in orbit somewhere between the moon and Alpha Centauri. Her voice garbled by distance, but unmistakably still reading from her scene. OTEBOOK. Voss raised his coffee and saluted the stars. "Let her orbit forever," he said. "She's not coming back." But just in case, he pointed to the monument. Beneath it, engineers had quietly installed an old asteroid railgun aimed squarely at the skies. Rusty whispered, "Loaded with HOA furniture and a single flamingo nuke." The crowd laughed. The HOA was dead, and its grave. Gleefully, tastefully, hideously decorated,